Hey everyone, so we didn't get any mines this week. There's too much snow in there and we were busy on another endeavor. Actually, we did something called Survival Shakedown. I'll put the link on there if you want to have a look at it. Basically, the scenario is you crash your plane and you have to survive 24 hours with what you have on you. It's kind of fun. It's way up in the mountains and lots of snow in there. So yeah, we'll put the link in the comments section if you want to have a look at it. And so this week what we're going to do is people wanted to know what I had in my museum. So we're going to go through everything and we'll show you what we have in the museum.
Running out and the usual life, streets infected and crawled in the slime. The neon nightmare is about to unwind.
So this is the Crosley engine that we got from Vectorville. It's real cool. It's 17.5 horsepower. This thing probably weighs 4,000 or 5,000 pounds. And it's really surprising it turns over. Not really that hard to turn over. And this is how they actually start these guys. They just had to, you got all the fuel set up and you turn them over pretty fast. This is a pretty big one, so maybe it takes 2 guys to turn it over. There's no electric start or anything like that. And I'm pretty confident we'll get this guy running. We just need some guys that know a little bit more about them. And there's a couple little, some of these throttle things are kind of seized, but you know, these are just kind of little things. The valves turn over and everything, so I'm confident that one day we'll get this thing fired up and running. Well, this had a big belt drive on it, so they used a flat belt maybe to run a sawmill or some other equipment. I don't really know what they did with this specifically. We used it for a lot of different things back then. And you imagine, you know, this is 17.5 horsepower. I mean, a chainsaw's got about that much power these days, so maybe they had different kind of horses back then, I don't know. So, but it wasn't really much of a job to get this all running. It's got little, lots of little points where you oil things and lots of little, I guess that's the fuel system there. There's a screen there, an injection system. Hopefully we can get that working. Must have been a little cover missing there. And I'll show you this part of it here. And like I said, it turns over fairly easy. Not that easy to, there we go. We just put some transmission oil in there and it turned over easier all the time. So we just put oil in these little covers here. And yeah, it's not rocket science. And that's it. That's it. The Crosley diesel motor. So this is a big steam boiler that I got. Well, it's not that big, but it's fair size. I bet you probably weighs 1,500, 2,000 pounds. There's a lot of iron in this thing. And it's just a wood-fired boiler. It's missing the door. We'll look inside, I'll show you. You start a fire in here, basically. And it just heats up the water through them tubes. So you know, you get the fire going and the heat just heats up the water in the tubes. This is a jacket, and that's how you make steam. So the idea, I don't know what that is, must have been some kind of a safety valve that's broke off maybe or something. So maybe one of these days we'll get a fire going in here, and then we'll hook it up to the steam turbine and we'll make some electricity out of wood. This is just a real old rock crusher, and they would have used this when they were assaying minerals and stuff to crush it up to see how much gold or whatever's in there. So belt driven, and it all turns, and it just grinds, going backwards, just grinds the rocks up and spits them out there. Okay, so this basically, you hook these two terminals up to an electric blasting cap. So here is an electric blasting cap, so they would have gone on there. And then, yeah, you just turn this handle like that, generates a charge, and that's how they set off blasting caps back in. So, and here's a little box there for the original CIL blasting caps. And so, the other thing we have here, this is a light bulb that is actually, it came from Phoenix. It is a hand-blown light bulb. It's about 120 years old. So it was inside the mine. And these were actually very valuable back then. In Antioch, they wrote stolen on there because the workers used to steal these lights and put them in their houses. So I'd really like to get one of those that says stolen on it. This is a set of gold scales. So there's all the different weights, and you put your gold on there and you put it on there, and that's how it was a balanced scale for gold. And these are some carbide lamps. But so we'll show you these lamps here. So we start off with this lamp here, and this is the old candle. It was called a Tommy stick. You just stick that into the side of a timber, you light that up, and that was the first lamp they ever had in the mines. Then they went to this one here, and this one is called a teapot. And basically just put coal oil or whatever in there, and you had a wick in there, you lit that, and that stuck out in your helmet. And then after that, they invented the carbide lamp. We'll show you how the carbide lamp worked, and pretty interesting. We're going to do a show just using carbide, but basically you just screw the bottom off, the carbide goes in the bottom, and in this top part here, you just put water in there, and then you set this, the one, then the water drips into the carbide, and that creates acetylene. So acetylene comes out here, you light like that, and there you go, you have a carbide lamp. That's the way they worked. It's kind of funny actually when the miners, if they found themselves underground and all of a sudden they ran out of water and they had carbide, sometimes they pistoned these, and that worked to keep them out of there. So, you know, kind of panicky. They didn't have backups for lights back then, so if their light went out, they're in big trouble. This is actually a flask that they used. It's a just right flask, and they filled that up full of carbide, and during the day when they're working, they unscrewed that, put more carbide in there, put more water in there, and that's how they stayed safe in the mines and stayed alight. And then after that, they went to the electric lamps and the great big heavy batteries that they had to charge, and then they have the more modern lights they have now. Here are just some of these old bottles and stuff. There's old bottle dumps that Pepsi and Mission, Crosley. These are not really that old. They're just back in the 70s and the 60s and stuff. Just some old bottles that were there. And this is an original drawing of Phoenix. It was drawn up in 1907. So this is the whole town site. This is all gone now, and it's just a fascinating city and stuff. There was 3,000 people there, and it was one of the biggest copper mines in the British Commonwealth at the time. And this is a really cool sign that we found inside of a mine, the HB mine, and it was a huge mine, and they had a big elevator that went up 5 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and then there's a whole a bunch of bells and signals, and that's the whole system how that worked. This here, I have no idea what this is. It says, it's got some writing on it. It says return to the mine safety branch. It's a big, heavy, kind of a drum, some kind of a test or a safety thing. I have no idea what it is. Hopefully someone's going to tell me what it is one of these days. And here we have our telephones. So this is a really cool telephone. It's a mine telephone. It's in an explosive-proof box. And some of the other telephones that we have here. This one here is actually a magneto, so you cranked it up to generate a charge, and these are mine telephones that they have. Well, this is a real cool sign, and this is from the Granby cars. The Granby cars had wheels on the one side, and they tipped the trains. Here we go. This is a water wheel, just a kind of a section of one. There was one great big one was given to us, but we just had a heck of a time. It was so heavy we couldn't get it onto the truck, and it kept falling off. Yeah, kind of cool to see these old water wheels. An Emco air-operated locomotive. It's missing the air tank, so it runs by air, and I've totally rebuilt this. And it had a 2-speed transmission originally, but they had some issues with it, and it doesn't work anymore. It needs the chains, so there's just a chain for the drive, and we'll get it all fired up here one of these days. It works just fine. Here's a project that we'll work on next winter, and it's a really old ore cart. You see, it's riveted, so anything that's riveted was built prior to 1920. We'll get a few more parts for it, and we'll put it together. I mean, this isn't anything that was really particular to mining, but basically it's for handling ice. So it's kind of a squeeze or something, and there's a saw there. They cut the ice, and they didn't have refrigeration back then, obviously, so they use that for handling ice. This is an air-powered chainsaw. They use it in the mines because they couldn't use any other kind of chainsaw because of the fumes. It's a Remington. It works. And this is a pretty old drill. So it says they're patented February 11th, 1911. So it's an old drill, and they use the old drill steel in them, and it's a rail drill. So what they did is they start off with a 2-foot bit like it's in there now, and then you set it up and you just crank it all the way in, pull it out, and then you put in a 4-foot and a 6-foot, and that's how they drilled it. There's an old cart here. It probably came from a smelter, very old cart. On top of that there's a mucker. We've seen that in some of the mines and stuff, and that's what they use to take the material out of raises where it's not level, and they have 3 winches, 3 lines on a winch that run that up and down, and that is just a gate, really small gate for an ore pass. And, I don't know, this cart has its own story. We call that Tippy, so it was rescued out of a mine, and it's a very good example of just almost a pristine cart. Behind that, we have a rocker shovel. So this is an air-powered loader, and what they use that for is at a face of a mine when they do the blasting, when they're doing a tunnel. It has 2 functions. On the one, there's 2 control levers. One makes it go back and forth, and the other one raises and lowers that bucket through a kind of a winch here. And it works just fine, and yeah, you just ram it ahead, and then it loads the ore into the back. And we should probably do a demo of it one of these days. But and this is a side tipping ore cart, and what it does, it just grab it here, it just tips right over to the side. It was that simple to tip that cart. So this is an ore cart that I got out of a mine. Well, basically, I just the cart was completely rotted, and I got a bunch of pieces of ore carts out of mines over a period of time. And this was an ore cart that would have been pulled by mules many years ago, and it was before there was railways in this country. And all these parts would have been shipped in probably by Teamsters from the United States, and they built these carts out of parts. I've seen many of these carts. None of them are exactly the same, so they're all kind of uniquely built. They just got the parts and they built these, and that's what they hauled ore out of in the mines for many years before they got locomotives. So here is my other little room here. So first of all, we got some real old dynamite boxes, and some of them have the years and stuff on them. The first one is a giant powder company box we got out of a mine. It was it's got 1918 written on it, and these other ones, this one, the Hamilton Powder Company, and the other ones are newer ones from Polar, Forsyth, Gelatin, that are back from the 1940s. So to the left of that, this is a black powder container from Hamilton Powder Company. It's kind of interesting. You look at the lid of it, and rather than them opening it from where it's supposed to be open, they just took a screwdriver and smacked it and poured the black powder out. So kind of amazing they would do that. But so these are just some of these old tools and stuff that we have. Back then they had a lot of square headed bolts or handmade bolts and stuff, and they had special wrenches that they had for working with them. There's little crescent wrenches and some other tools here. You know, there's an old stove there, some old glass bottles and cans that we found. There's an old bell. This one we found is from 1875. I don't know what it would have been used for. And it's a bell that they used for horses and stuff so they could find them. And so this is an ore bucket that they used back in the mines to haul ore out of shafts. There's some blacksmith tools we got from a collector in town here. Kind of restored them. There is a track gauge that they use to measure the distance between the two rails when they're building the rails. An old grub hoe that they used back in the mines. This is kind of interesting. This is actually an original copper line and the connectors from a train in Phoenix, and that would have been probably about 100 years ago. They only used one line back then, and they used the rail for the ground, which they would never do today, because if you happen to touch that while you're standing on the rail, you got electrocuted. This is a tram bucket. It's in really nice shape. Now it was off a really old tram line, but this is a newer bucket, so it would have been, because it's welded, it would have been manufactured after 1920. The older ones are actually all riveted. So, but yeah, basically it's in really nice shape, and there's just two hooks. And we don't have the rest of it, but in the museum here we're going to find the other parts of it, the pulleys and stuff, and we're going to hang it from the ceiling, and we'll be able to do a demo and show how these buckets work on this tram line. So this is a counting board that the miners would have used to keep track of their loads, how many loads of ore they mined that day. So it works just like a crib board, just would have had little pegs in there and to count the loads. So here we have a flatbed rail car, and they would use those to haul timbers and stuff out of mines. But it just has a couple displays on it. There's a Gardner Denver air pump. So it was an air operated pump that they used to pump water out of mines. And it would have been operated by air. And this last piece here is just one of the coolest things that we found. And what this is, we thought it was a winch, right? It looks like a winch, right? And definitely not a winch, because the middle part doesn't turn. So what this actually is called a steam generator. So when they first had locomotives and they used steam power, they wouldn't need electricity for things like lights for the locomotive. And so what they did is they invented this, and it's got a big wheel there inside here, and it turns and generates electricity. This one here is actually 110 volts, so they would have used it probably in a mine, or they would use this kind of a similar thing in a sawmill. But this company, the Pyle National Company, is still in business today, and it manufactures electrical lights and that sort of thing. But they started off making these big steam turbo turbines and generating electricity for locomotives and steam engines. So here's a shot of the generator on this thing. All still turns and everything. I'm sure it will generate power. The thing is, we have to make sure that we have the right load on it, because we don't want to burn it up. We know it's 110 volts, but we don't know if it's AC or DC. So we've got to make sure that we have all that set up properly before. We'll probably just use air to turn it over. It turns over freely, and maybe we'll hook that big steam boiler that we have up to that, make some steam out of it, and generate some electricity like they would have, 120 years ago. Okay, so this is something new that we bought this year, and it's really cool because we have a lot of stuff that we haul into the mines, and this gives us ability to, if we have a co-host or whatever, to go in there. And you notice the sticker here, Forgotten, British Columbia, and that's www.forgottenbc.ca. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the tour of the museum.